Welcome to our tiny home.
Ashley Mazanek lives in an undisclosed location in San Diego's North County. She doesn't talk about where her tiny home is because the location is basically a legal loophole.
I work from home, so I'm usually sitting at this computer doing lots of wonderful work for Eco Arts Foundation.
Mazanek, like many tiny house advocates, sees them as a no-brainer.
Tiny houses solve two problems. One of the problems is low-income housing. We have a low-income housing shortage all over San Diego. In fact, we're breaking California law. And the second one is we have a climate action plan that we are not going to be able to meet unless we have more options for eco-friendly housing.
In a county like San Diego, where the price of vacant land can be well over $100,000 an acre, the idea of building communities of tiny homes makes a lot of sense. But it turns out that while building a tiny home is fairly straightforward, finding a place to put it is much more difficult.
As it all evolves, the houses will get better.
Ben Rawson built Mazanek's tiny house, and he wants to build more.
And most people are looking to spend about $50,000 on a tiny house like this one right here.
Rawson is planning to develop a tiny house community somewhere in unincorporated San Diego County, but he won't say exactly where yet because he's still working on the permits.
Tiny houses right now, they're undefined. There is no definition in San Diego County Code or California Code for what tiny houses are. So finding places to put a structure that doesn't have a legal definition becomes difficult.
This is super fun today because this is the front door.
Rawson is not the first to try this idea.
And then there's a really beautiful bay window that's going right here.
Last year, KPBS profiled Janet Ashworth,
Thank you, sir.
who also started building tiny homes.
Well, I knew that to have a successful tiny home company, I also needed to start a community here in San Diego.
Her company is called Habitat Tiny Homes.
Ashworth had no trouble attracting investors.
There isn't a tiny home community yet.
Tom Vanderblumen, a civil servant living in a 3-bedroom house in Carlsbad, is contemplating retirement.
Actually, I've been interested in tiny homes for like 10 years or more, even before it was popular.
He was one of about 30 people who gave Ashworth a $1,000 deposit to be part of her Habitat's Tiny Homes community. But it never happened.
I think the whole thing kind of collapsed.
He lost his deposit. Others lost much more.
This is the fraud case where, it's all clearly stated here what happened, where they wrote checks and for totaling that amount of money, $62,000. I mean, I think there's a bankruptcy now, and they'll probably never get their money back.
It still has a community type of feel to it.
Ashworth is now living in a tiny home, also in an undisclosed location in North County. She's facing several lawsuits. She expects her company, Habitat's Tiny Homes, will declare bankruptcy.
Well, I won't lose anything because I don't have anything to lose. Because I used every dime I had in my personal name, including credit cards, into this project. I was fully invested. And so when the company tanked, I tanked personally as well.
Ashworth says anyone living in a tiny home classified as an RV in San Diego is in a precarious situation.
It's illegal to live in an RV full-time. So right there, basically what they did is made it so you can't live in a tiny home full-time.
She says the other route is to call it a mobile home. She bought land in Poway, but the money ran out before she could get it rezoned for a tiny homes community. Tiny homes communities are developing in Oregon and Washington, mainly to help house the homeless. But Mazanek says the path still needs to be blazed to build tiny home communities in California.
We do need policy that is favorable to tiny houses, and currently just the permitting and all of the requirements to be in a tiny house are stacked way against the homeowner.
The first house on the community will actually be my own.
Rawson says he's found 3 acres for his tiny homes community, and he's collecting applications from would-be tiny homeowners.
We're going to break ground this coming spring, and the first houses, it'll be built just like we build tiny houses. They'll have to meet a different code guidelines in order to satisfy the county.
Vanderblumen has a word of warning.
I would just say do your homework, and it's not nearly as easy as you think it would be.
Alison St John, KPBS News.